We have the world champion Gukesh Domaraju on the board. He's taking on Hans Niemann in the 16th round of the Super Blitz 2026 happening in Warsaw. Hans comes in, he's leading the tournament. It's a super important round for him because after this there'll be only 2 more games left and Hans has a huge potential to win this tournament. He adjusts all his pieces, gets ready for the battle. You can see some of the players have already taken their chairs. And Hans looks excited. He already lost to Gukesh yesterday in a game that was crazy. And now you can see there, one of his foot is on the chair. Hans is battle ready. He wants to fight it out. And as the players start entering in, one of the players who's really after Hans in this tournament is Fabiano Caruana. He's trying to push himself. Alireza Firuza enters in, Vladimir Fedosiev, and the local favorite Jan Krzysztof Duda as the players take their chairs and get ready for the big clash. Hans Niemann versus Domaraju Gukesh. And the players are ready. The crowd is ready. Let's begin. A handshake. And Gukesh starts off the game with knight to f3, knight f6, c4, e6, and Fedosiev is waiting for his opponent. He's not here. And that is Javokhir Sindarov, the World Championship challenger, arrives late. But let's focus on this game. Pawn takes, and d4 by Gukesh as he strikes in the center. Knight comes out to c6, bishop b5. Black is playing for an isolated queen pawn. He takes on d4, knight takes d4, pinning the knight, bishop breaks the pin, white castles, black plays his bishop to d6, lining up the bishop here. Gukesh comes back to f3. Look at Gukesh's time, he has 5 minutes, 7 seconds. Meanwhile, Hans starts to think because his pawn is hanging here in the center. Knight takes d5, you can of course play bishop e6 and defend it, but Hans is thinking about it. Does he need to defend that pawn? Well, he goes knight to e5, attacking the bishop on b5. But what kind of a move is this? Because when you have the isolated pawn, you don't want to trade pieces. While here after bishop takes, knight takes, you're already exchanging 2 pairs of pieces. So Gukesh slows down a bit. He's starting to think, should I go back with my bishop to e2? Should I take on d7? Let's imagine this. Take, knight takes, bishop takes. And yeah, somehow the d5 pawn isn't really hanging there. So bishop e2, castle's played. And now Gukesh takes on e5, bishop e5. And boom, takes the pawn. He is asking Hans, where is your compensation? What do you have for the pawn that I've just taken? And Hans says, well, look at this bishop here. 1. And the second. 2 rockets and knight f4. Already black is in a better position. Queen c7 or queen e7. Don't trade the queens. So once you trade the queens, white gets an extra pawn and at least a kind of a fine position. Okay, Gukesh now begins to think because, Hans has played this really well until now. He goes a5 and what? Hans is ready for queens to be traded. I think Gukesh should simply trade it. Takes. Yes, the bishop on c1 can't develop immediately, but knight d3, attacking the bishop and then getting this bishop out somehow. But Gukesh goes knight d3. He keeps the queens on the board. Well, that's something about Gukesh. He always wants to fight. Bishop to c7. One of the plans in this position is queen d6, trying to mate here. And what do you do about the bishop on c1? There is bishop d2 trying to get to c3. It's 4 minutes for Gukesh, 3 minutes, 47 seconds for Hans Niemann. And once the queens aren't traded, now white has some serious thinking to do. Maybe b3 with the idea of bishop b2 should be possible. Or even bishop d2, but then queen d6. Let's imagine I go b3 Queen d6, threatening a mate. If you play g3 now, the light squares do get a bit weakened. And look at this bishop here. Oh, he does go b3. Gukesh does play his pawn here. Knight to e4. Well, Hans, why didn't he go queen d6? This allows Gukesh to finish his development. Bishop b2. Oh, but I understand what Hans wants. After bishop b2, he wants to bring his queen here. And Gukesh waits. He goes bishop b2. Now queen h4. That's the point. He wants to attack here. If you play g3, then boom, takes, and checkmate, because the bishop looks here. So you actually cannot really push the pawn. Hans, whoa, he plays it. Queen h4 on the board. It's a mate in one threatened here. Can you go h3? Because if you play h3, knight to g5, I'm going to sacrifice something here. And the two rockets here are launching. Gukesh under immense pressure. Hans Niemann looking calm as ever. Okay, f4 should be one idea to block this. For sure. But then you weaken the e4 square. The bishop opens up there. Oh, knight f4. Trying to block here. Again, not a great idea because rook d8. My queen has to move. And then maybe g5 also can be played at some point. Gukesh, maybe he's thinking about the knight. Oh, he can go bishop e5 to trade. Oh, that could be something. But then knight c3. Attacking here, you can't take this because h2 is a mate. Whoa, so many tactics here. And Gukesh's time is bleeding. He's actually come down to, I don't even know, maybe a minute? Is that true? Come on, Guki, what are you doing? You can't think so much. It's just move 17. And he plays knight e5. Down to 1 minute 20 seconds. And Hans Niemann gets his rook into the center. Good move. Queen c1 was a kind of forced move. Queen e1 was possible because if you go queen c2, rook d2 loses a piece. So you had to go on the first rank. And now bishop takes. Bishop takes. Knight to d2. What a move. What a move. Because if you go rook d1, boom, queen e4, double attack. It's a mate here already. And Gukesh once again has to think. Hans posing him with so many questions. He goes bishop g3, brings his bishop back, queen e4. It's a great move. Look at queen e4. If you play bishop f3, I simply take, and it's a mate. So you can't play bishop f3. f3 maybe is possible, but then queen e3 check. And if you play bishop f1, e2 is hanging. Bishop f2, e2. So bg3, queen e4 is a good move. Hans is thinking here. I mean, there's no other move, actually speaking. Maybe there's queen b4, queen f6. He goes queen e4, good move. f3, boom, takes on e3. Rook f2, played. And now, white goes rook e8. Wow. Hans Niemann is completely dominating the position. Not only has he a better position, he has 2 extra minutes on the clock. Queen b2. Gukesh has to fight. What else? And now h5. Maybe start expanding on the king side. h5, g5, h4. Seems weird, but if you think about it, everything in white's camp is kind of locked up. And look at Hans there. He's just trying to get in. He knows that there must be something that could help him win here. He plays pawn to f5. And Gukesh somehow is back in the game. Rook d1. Fantastic move. Okay, are there tactics now? Knight f3. If gf3, rook d1, bishop d1, f4, bishop h4, queen e1 check, rook f1 and take on h4. Wow, what a tactics that was. Too difficult to spot. King h8 played by Hans, which is a good move because Gukesh now down to 54 seconds. Hans Niemann has 2 minutes. What is Gukesh going to do? He goes bishop c7, one of the best moves in the position. Hitting the rook, also the pawn on a5. And now Hans, if he plays something like rook d7, bishop a5 is a nice juicy pawn that you've won. Hans Niemann goes rook d5. He brings the rook to the 5th rank, attacks the pawn. Gukesh goes h3, a mistake. He could have taken, by the way, bishop a5 because if rook a5, d2 is hanging. But h3 played, and now a beautiful move here is bishop b5, because if you take bishop b5, I have knight f3 check and I win the rook. So bishop b5 is deflection, and he finds it. Whoa! Hans Niemann, legend, takes on f3 and he's so happy there. Boom! Bishop comes back to f1, and Gukesh is saying, basically, I have two bishops for a rook. But Hans is saying, look at your king, Gukesh. Oh, rook e6. He wants to swing the rook over to g6. A better move here was somehow h6. Just making space, because now after rook e6, you can go queen c2. And the rook is hanging. He goes king h2. Somehow Hans should definitely take care of his back rank issues here. That can become a big problem in the position. 1 minute 20 seconds for Hans. I mean, imagine h5 is the only move. He goes f4, and now Gukesh is not just okay, he's actually winning. Bishop a5, he takes it. Wow, what a move. What a move. You know, earlier in such a position, bishop a5 wasn't even possible because of rook g6, and you are getting checkmated because of this square. But now with f4 square gone, Gukesh takes it, h6, and now rook g2, threatening a mate. He goes queen e2. Man, so many swings here. Hans Niemann is back. Queen c5 is a beautiful move. If queen e6, queen f2, game over. He plays rook a1. Hans is basically saying he's attacking this pawn. Gukesh moves the queen. Rook c6. And now queen d2. It's a bar dance here. So many times the bar moving up and down, up and down. Rook d6 is a beautiful move. Rook takes, queen takes d6, f2 is hanging. So to deflect the queen. Hans Niemann taking his time. He knows that he has more time on the clock. Gukesh is down to 5 seconds. Queen e2. And now goes to d1. Bishop g2 forced. Gukesh somehow surviving with all his pieces. Rook to d5. But this time the bishop comes back to c3. Attacks the rook. Rook to c1. Bishop b d2. Whoa. Takes. Rook takes. And now check. King at 7, and he takes the pawn. All of a sudden, Gukesh is the one who's better and close to winning. King g3. He goes in with the rook. Bishop e3. Beautiful move. Stopping rook g1. It was one of the only moves in the position to get an advantage. And h5 played. h4. Fantastic. Rook d3. He goes bishop h3. Another classy move. Check. King goes back. And bishop h6, there's bishop e6 check coming with a mate. Takes bishop c4, and he resigns. Gukesh wins, and look at Gukesh's expression there. He can't believe that he managed to win against Hans Niemann there. Insane play, shaking his head there. Hans Niemann was totally winning throughout the game. He played incredibly well, and his title is in danger here because Gukesh managed to beat him 2-0 in Blitz.
I następna runda na 16 minut.